The Lord spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai, in the tent of meeting, on the first day of the second month, in the second year after they had come out of the land of Egypt, saying, "Take a census of all the congregation of the people of Israel, by clans, by fathers' houses, according to the number of names, every male, head by head. From 20 years old and upward, all in Israel who are able to go to war, you and Aaron shall list them, company by company. And there shall be with you a man from each tribe, each man being the head of the house of his fathers. And these are the names of the men who shall assist you. From Reuben, Elizur the son of Shedeur. From Simeon, Shelumiel the son of Zurishaddai. From Judah, Nashon the son of Amminadab. From Issachar, Nethanel the son of Zuar. From Zebulun, Eliab the son of Helon from the sons of Joseph. From Ephraim, Elishama the son of Ammihud. And from Manasseh, Gamaliel the son of Pedasur. From Benjamin, Abidan the son of Gideoni. From Dan, Ahiezer the son of Ammishaddai. From Asher, Pagiel the son of Ochran. From Gad, Eliasaph the son of Duel. From Naphtali, Ahira the son of Enan. These were the ones chosen from the congregation, the chiefs of their ancestral tribes, the heads of the clans of Israel. Moses and Aaron took these men who had been named, and on the first day of the second month they assembled the whole congregation together, who registered themselves by clans, by fathers' houses, according to the number of names from 20 years old and upward, head by head, as the Lord commanded Moses. So he listed them in the wilderness of Sinai. The people of Reuben, Israel's firstborn, their generations, by their clans, by their fathers' houses, according to the number of names, head by head, every male from 20 years old and upward, all who were able to go to war. Those listed of the tribe of Reuben were 46,500. Of the people of Simeon, their generations, by their clans, by their fathers' houses, those of them who were listed, according to the number of names, head by head, every male from 20 years old and upward, all who were able to go to war, those listed of the tribe of Simeon were 59,300. Of the people of Gad, their generations, by their clans, by their fathers' houses, according to the number of the names, from 20 years old and upward, all who were able to go to war, those listed of the tribe of Gad were 45,650. Of the people of Judah, their generations, by their clans, by their fathers' houses, according to the number of names, from 20 years old and upward, every man able to go to war, those listed of the tribe of Judah were 74,600. Of the people of Issachar, their generations, by their clans, by their fathers' houses, according to the number of names, from 20 years old and upward, every man able to go to war, those listed of the tribe of Issachar were 54,400. Of the people of Zebulun, their generations, by their clans, by their fathers' houses, according to the number of names, from 20 years old and upward, every man able to go to war, those listed of the tribe of Zebulun were 57,400. Of the people of Joseph, namely, of the people of Ephraim, their generations, by their clans, by their fathers' houses, according to the number of names, from 20 years old and upward, every man able to go to war, those listed of the tribe of Ephraim were 40,500. Of the people of Manasseh, their generations, by their clans, by their fathers' houses, according to the number of names, from 20 years old and upward, every man able to go to war, those listed of the tribe of Manasseh were 32,200. Of the people of Benjamin, their generations, by their clans, by their fathers' houses, according to the number of names, from 20 years old and upward, every man able to go to war, those listed of the tribe of Benjamin were 35,400. Of the people of Dan, their generations, by their clans, by their fathers' houses, according to the number of names, from 20 years old and upward, every man able to go to war, those listed of the tribe of Dan were 62,700. Of the people of Asher, their generations, by their clans, by their fathers' houses, according to the number of names, from 20 years old and upward, every man able to go to war, those listed of the tribe of Asher were 41,500. Of the people of Naphtali, their generations, by their clans, by their fathers' houses, according to the number of names, from 20 years old and upward, every man able to go to war, those listed of the tribe of Naphtali were 53,400. These are those who were listed, whom Moses and Aaron listed with the help of the chiefs of Israel, 12 men, each representing his father's house. So all those listed of the people of Israel, by their fathers' houses, from 20 years old and upward, every man able to go to war in Israel, all those listed were 603,550. But the Levites were not listed along with them by their ancestral tribe. For the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Only the tribe of Levi you shall not list, and you shall not take a census of them among the people of Israel. But appoint the Levites over the tabernacle of the testimony, and over all its furnishings, and over all that belongs to it. They are to carry the tabernacle and all its furnishings, and they shall take care of it, and shall camp around the tabernacle. When the tabernacle is to set out, the Levites shall take it down, and when the tabernacle is to be pitched, the Levites shall set it up. And if any outsider comes near, he shall be put to death. The people of Israel shall pitch their tents by their companies, each man in his own camp, and each man by his own standard. But the Levites shall camp around the tabernacle of the testimony, so that there may be no wrath on the congregation of the people of Israel. And the Levites shall keep guard over the tabernacle of the testimony. Thus did the people of Israel. They did according to all that the Lord commanded Moses. The Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, The people of Israel shall camp each by his own standard, with the banners of their fathers' houses. They shall camp facing the tent of meeting on every side. Those to camp on the east side toward the sunrise shall be of the standard of the camp of Judah by their companies. The chief of the people of Judah being Nahshon the son of Amminadab, his company as listed being 74,600. Those to camp next to him shall be the tribe of Issachar, the chief of the people of Issachar being Nethanel the son of Zuar, his company as listed being 54,400. Then the tribe of Zebulun, the chief of the people of Zebulun being Eliab the son of Helon, his company as listed being 57,400. All those listed of the camp of Judah by their companies were 186,400. They shall set out first on the march. On the south side shall be the standard of the camp of Reuben by their companies, the chief of the people of Reuben being Elizur the son of Shadur, his company as listed being 46,500. And those to camp next to him shall be the tribe of Simeon, the chief of the people of Simeon being Shelumiel the son of Zurishaddai, his company as listed being 59,300. Then the tribe of Gad, the chief of the people of Gad being Eliasaph the son of Royal, his company as listed being 45,650. All those listed of the camp of Reuben by their companies were 151,450. They shall set out second. Then the tent of meeting shall set out, with the camp of the Levites in the midst of the camps. As they camp, so shall they set out, each in position, standard by standard. On the west side shall be the standard of the camp of Ephraim by their companies, the chief of the people of Ephraim being Elishama the son of Ammihud, his company as listed being 40,500. And next to him shall be the tribe of Manasseh, the chief of the people of Manasseh being Gamaliel the son of Pedahzur, his company as listed being 32,200. Then the tribe of Benjamin, the chief of the people of Benjamin being Abidan the son of Gideoni, his company as listed being 35,400. All those listed of the camp of Ephraim by their companies were 108,100. They shall set out third on the march. On the north side shall be the standard of the camp of Dan by their companies, the chief of the people of Dan being Ahiezer the son of Ammishaddai, his company as listed being 62,700. And those to camp next to him shall be the tribe of Asher, the chief of the people of Asher being Pagiel the son of Ochran, his company as listed being 41,500. Then the tribe of Naphtali, the chief of the people of Naphtali being Ahira the son of Enan, his company as listed being 53,400. All those listed of the camp of Dan were 157,600. They shall set out last, standard by standard. These are the people of Israel, as listed by their fathers' houses. All those listed in the camps by their companies were 603,550. But the Levites were not listed among the people of Israel, as the Lord commanded Moses. Thus did the people of Israel, according to all that the Lord commanded Moses, so they camped by their standards, and so they set out, each one in his clan, according to his father's house. These are the generations of Aaron and Moses at the time when the Lord spoke with Moses on Mount Sinai. These are the names of the sons of Aaron: Nadab the firstborn, and Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. These are the names of the sons of Aaron, the anointed priests, whom he ordained to serve as priests. But Nadab and Abihu died before the Lord when they offered unauthorized fire before the Lord in the wilderness of Sinai, and they had no children. So Eleazar and Ithamar served as priests in the lifetime of Aaron their father. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Bring the tribe of Levi near, and set them before Aaron the priest, that they may minister to him. They shall keep guard over him and over the whole congregation before the tent of meeting, as they minister at the tabernacle. They shall guard all the furnishings of the tent of meeting, and keep guard over the people of Israel, as they minister at the tabernacle. And you shall give the Levites to Aaron and his sons. They are wholly given to him from among the people of Israel. And you shall appoint Aaron and his sons, and they shall guard their priesthood. But if any outsider comes near, he shall be put to death." And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Behold, I have taken the Levites from among the people of Israel, instead of every firstborn who opens the womb among the people of Israel. The Levites shall be mine, for all the firstborn are mine. On the day that I struck down all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, I consecrated for my own all the firstborn in Israel, both of man and of beast. They shall be mine. I am the Lord." And the Lord spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai, saying, "List the sons of Levi by fathers' houses and by clans. Every male from a month old and upward you shall list." So Moses listed them according to the word of the Lord, as he was commanded. And these were the sons of Levi by their names: Gershon, and Kohath, and Merari. And these are the names of the sons of Gershon by their clans: Libni and Shimei. And the sons of Kohath by their clans: Amram, Izhar, Hebron, and Uzziel. And the sons of Merari by their clans: Mali and Mushi. These are the clans of the Levites by their fathers' houses. To Gershon belonged the clan of the Libnites and the clan of the Shimeites. These were the clans of the Gershonites. Their listing, according to the number of all the males from a month old and upward, was 7,500. The clans of the Gershonites were to camp behind the tabernacle on the west, with Eliasaph the son of Lael as chief of the father's house of the Gershonites. And the guard duty of the sons of Gershon in the tent of meeting involved the tabernacle, the tent with its covering, the screen for the entrance of the tent of meeting, the hangings of the court, the screen for the door of the court that is around the tabernacle and the altar, and its cords, all the service connected with these. To Kohath belonged the clan of the Amramites, and the clan of the Izharites, and the clan of the Hebronites, and the clan of the Uzzielites. These are the clans of the Kohathites. According to the number of all the males, from a month old and upward, there were 8,600, keeping guard over the sanctuary. The clans of the sons of Kohath were to camp on the south side of the tabernacle, with Elizaphan the son of Uzziel as chief of the father's house of the clans of the Kohathites. And their guard duty involved the ark, the table, the lampstand, the altars, the vessels of the sanctuary with which the priests minister, and the screen, all the service connected with these. And Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, was to be chief over the chiefs of the Levites, and to have oversight of those who kept guard over the sanctuary. To Merari belonged the clan of the Mahlites and the clan of the Mushites. These are the clans of Merari. Their listing, according to the number of all the males from a month old and upward, was 6,200. And the chief of the father's house of the clans of Merari was Zuriel the son of Abihail. They were to camp on the north side of the tabernacle, and the appointed guard duty of the sons of Merari involved the frames of the tabernacle, the bars, the pillars, the bases, and all their accessories, all the service connected with these, also the pillars around the court, with their bases and pegs and cords. Those who were to camp before the tabernacle on the east, before the tent of meeting toward the sunrise, were Moses and Aaron and his sons, guarding the sanctuary itself, to protect the people of Israel. And any outsider who came near was to be put to death. All those listed among the Levites, whom Moses and Aaron listed at the commandment of the Lord, by clans, all the males from a month old and upward, were 22,000. And the Lord said to Moses, "List all the firstborn males of the people of Israel from a month old and upward, taking the number of their names. And you shall take the Levites for me. I am the Lord, instead of all the firstborn among the people of Israel and the cattle of the Levites, instead of all the firstborn among the cattle of the people of Israel." So Moses listed all the firstborn among the people of Israel as the Lord commanded him. And all the firstborn males, according to the number of names, from a month old and upward as listed, were 22,273. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Take the Levites instead of all the firstborn among the people of Israel, and the cattle of the Levites instead of their cattle. The Levites shall be mine. I am the Lord. And as the redemption price for the 273 of the firstborn of the people of Israel, over and above the number of the male Levites, you shall take 5 shekels per head. You shall take them according to the shekel of the sanctuary, and give the money to Aaron and his sons as the redemption price for those who are over." So Moses took the redemption money from those who were over and above, those redeemed by the Levites. From the firstborn of the people of Israel he took the money, 1,365 shekels, by the shekel of the sanctuary. And Moses gave the redemption money to Aaron and his sons, according to the word of the Lord, as the Lord commanded Moses. The Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, "Take a census of the sons of Kohath from among the sons of Levi, by their clans and their fathers' houses, from 30 years old up to 50 years old, all who can come on duty to do the work in the tent of meeting. This is the service of the sons of Kohath in the tent of meeting, the most holy things. When the camp is to set out, Aaron and his sons shall go in and take down the veil of the screen and cover the ark of the testimony with it. Then they shall put on it a covering of goatskin, and spread on top of that a cloth all of blue, and shall put in its poles. And over the table of the bread of the presence they shall spread a cloth of blue, and put on it the plates, the dishes for incense, the bowls, and the flagons for the drink offering. The regular showbread also shall be on it. Then they shall spread over them a cloth of scarlet, and cover the same with a covering of goatskin, and shall put in its poles. And they shall take a cloth of blue, and cover the lampstand for the light, with its lamps, its tongs, its trays, and all the vessels for oil with which it is supplied. And they shall put it with all its utensils in a covering of goatskin, and put it on the carrying frame. And over the golden altar they shall spread a cloth of blue, and cover it with a covering of goatskin, and shall put in its poles. And they shall take all the vessels of the service that are used in the sanctuary, and put them in a cloth of blue, and cover them with a covering of goatskin, and put them on the carrying frame. And they shall take away the ashes from the altar, and spread a purple cloth over it. And they shall put on it all the utensils of the altar, which are used for the service there, the fire pans, the forks, the shovels, and the basins, all the utensils of the altar. And they shall spread on it a covering of goatskin, and shall put in its poles. And when Aaron and his sons have finished covering the sanctuary and all the furnishings of the sanctuary as the camp sets out, after that the sons of Kohath shall come to carry these, but they must not touch the holy things, lest they die. These are the things of the tent of meeting that the sons of Kohath are to carry. And Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, shall have charge of the oil for the light, the fragrant incense, the regular grain offering, and the anointing oil, with the oversight of the whole tabernacle and all that is in it, of the sanctuary and its vessels. The Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, Let not the tribe of the clans of the Kohathites be destroyed from among the Levites, but deal thus with them, that they may live and not die when they come near to the most holy things. Aaron and his sons shall go in and appoint them each to his task and to his burden. But they shall not go in to look on the holy things even for a moment, lest they die.
Shabbat Shalom, beloved. Welcome to our Mincha afternoon Shabbat service. I hope everyone has had a restful and blessed day of service unto Yahweh. What you were just listening to is, I found it on YouTube. It's um, two individuals who are husband and wife. I believe their names are Mark and Tamar, who are trying to translate the Torah into videos. Clearly, this is with the use of AI, but I'm a huge fan of anyone who is, even though it may not be all the way there, anyone who is attempting to make the Torah more accessible, anyone attempting to make the Torah more understandable. And ultimately, that is a good thing. Now, we have been immersed in, at the Ark of Yahweh, immersed in a understanding about the truth of the names and the deceptions used by religion to translate and transliterate improperly the Torah. And we should, though, with that knowledge, be at the point where we can hear Lord or God and translate it. We should be at the point where we can see, if you're reading scriptures and it's not a translated or transliterated scriptures that has the Hebrew name and it still has Lord or God. Well, what do you do when you see that? You probably, if you're like me, you'll grab a pen or a pencil and you'll write the name Yahweh or Yahshua or whatever the proper translation of the thing is to the knowledge that we've acquired. And then you don't let that stop you from gaining the knowledge, right? I hope people aren't throwing out Bibles, for example, because they've got the title Bible on it and they've got Lord and God in it. What you're likely doing is just translating it, because we've grown enough to know that there is a thing that we can do, and it requires us to just use our ability to translate. And so I hope that doesn't throw anyone off, and we should be at the point where it shouldn't. And I still think it is a good thing that people are trying to make the Torah parshas more accessible. And so that is not going to replace us reading them, but I thought it would be good to just share an example of how everyday people are doing Yahweh's will here on this earth realm of Eretz. Like I said, Shabbat Shalom. We're going to do a couple of songs. The one that was on my spirit earlier was What a Mighty One We Serve. What a mighty one we serve. Angels bow before you, heaven and earth adore you. What a mighty one we serve. What a mighty one we serve. What a mighty one we serve. Angels bow before you, heaven and earth adore you. What a mighty one we serve. The other one that was on my spirit was, oh, how does it go? Uh, oh gosh, I should have written it down, but I didn't. But here's one that just came to me. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Praise thee, Yahweh. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Praise thee, Yahweh. Praise thee, Yahweh. Hallelujah. Praise thee, Yahweh. Hallelujah. Praise thee, Yahweh. Hallelujah. Praise thee, Yahweh. Hallelujah. 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 Praise thee, Yahweh. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Praise thee, Yahweh. Praise thee, Yahweh. Hallelujah. Praise thee, Yahweh. Hallelujah. Praise thee, Yahweh. Hallelujah. Praise thee, Yahweh. A really good reminder for all of us is, of course, we are uh, in Shabbat all day, and when we're outside of Shabbat, we're trying to be in the spirit um, all day, as in attached to the tree of life, as in um, you wanna be not in the world, and one really good strategy to use to get back into the spirit, to reconnect to the tree of life. If you've had to do something worldly, as in we gotta go, we do have to engage in the world. And so when you're doing something worldly, engaging in the world, and then you want to get back into a spiritual, soulful connection, praise, sing a song, sing a couple of songs, and it is quite literally a strategy of Yahweh that He has given us in order to prepare our hearts and our souls to reattach and to reconnect and to reach that elevation point again. I think last week we talked about uh, how we need to carefully approach Father Yahweh's mist and dwelling, right? That we use the example of a what you do when you have a plug. You're trying to plug something into a socket, right? You gotta make sure it doesn't have water on it, for example, or you'll get electrocuted. All right, in that same way, you can't just pick up the Torah and start reading and think you're ready or prepared. You can't just start listening to something spiritual or soulful and not be mentally and spiritually and soulfully prepared. So you have to prepare your heart and your soul in order to then be able to see and hear Father Yahweh and understand the revelation knowledge that He is going to begin. So if you're ever needing to do this, right? And you're thinking, how do I do this in a way that is going to ensure that I understand it? You got to get back into the spirit. All right. Um, that being said, this week for our Parsha, we are in a new book. We are in the fourth book that Moshe wrote in the Torah, as it is traditionally understood, as in the first five books in Scripture. This is number four of five. And um, it's in English, it is known as Numbers. In Hebrew, it is Bamidbar. And um, I will explain, I think, a little bit of an overview about the entirety of this book, of this account, first, and then we'll get into the weeds of the parsha for this week, which is also called Bamidbar. And that is no coincidence. It is a signal, it is a signpost for us about something, which we'll get to shortly. But the book of Numbers or Bamidbar um, uh, is not the easiest book to read. Why do I say that? Well, because there was a commentary that I read actually about it that I thought was fascinating, and it said something along the lines of it's one of the most self-critical books in the Torah, and there's this uh, saying, I think it may be the name of Nelson Mandela's book, if I'm not mistaken, A Long Walk to Freedom. And that is what you can think about this book and this account of Bamidbar, right? As it is about the long walk to freedom. It is telling us something that we've really been saying over and over on our count of the Omer and on our journey to Mount Sinai and the 50th day of Shavuot. We've been calling it free people, and the undercurrents of why we're calling it free people really are at the core of what is in this book of Numbers, right? The message is that there is no shortcut to freedom. There is no shortcut to liberty. There is no hacking of the system. You're not going to get there um, by thinking you can show up, uh, once or twice and step back out, live the way you want to live, and then show back up and think you are, going to be able to access true and meaningful freedom, true and meaningful liberty, right? To become a free people, it really has nothing to do with chains and bondage. It is about a lifestyle change. And so there's no shortcut. You got to go through the hard, arduous work of lifestyle change in order to reach it. And that is really what we see in Numbers. It is a sober reminder of that, right? And there's a connection in Bamidbar to Shemot or Exodus. So what I mentioned to you earlier about the signpost of this parsha being the same name as the totality of the book, well, we see that also in Shemot, right? And Shemot, in Parsha 1 of Shemot, of the book of Shemot, it is also called Shemot. So those two things, Bamidbar's first Parsha being called Bamidbar, and Shemot, the book of Exodus, having the same name in the first Parsha as the book, those tell you, those are codes, if you will, that Yahweh there's a mystery there, and he's revealing to you that though these two books, Exodus and Bamidbar, or Shemot and Bamidbar, are related, and they are related in several ways. One is they're both about, of course, the journey from one is about the journey from slavery to freedom, and then what we are going to read in the book of Numbers is that freedom from oppression is not meaning you can do whatever you want when you feel like it. It is a freedom associated with a law governed liberty. It is a freedom that is associated with you with your free will, not by force, you with your free will choosing to still limit your actions and to ensure that your actions are still abound to a set of rules, to a set of instructions, to a set of teachings, right? Um, when we look at the map of the distance traveled from Egypt to the promised land, it's not that far, right? Um, in fact, we talked about how Yahweh actually could have just taken the people of Israel out of Egypt and down the Gaza beach line, and they would have been right in Israel, but he didn't do this. Um, and he didn't do that for a reason, because he is saying, you all are not yet ready to be in this land, and you need to be able to go and hear my voice and receive my instructions and become new people, quite literally, understand what the lifestyle is that you have to grow into. And that's going to take some time. So I'm going to take you off the beaten path, right? I'm not going to take you on the shortcut, as in there's no shortcut to liberty. I'm not going to put you on the shortcut, because that's not going to actually set you up for success. I'm going to ensure that you can be fully established in your characters, fully established in your lifestyle, fully established in your knowledge and connection to Yahweh before you get to the city. And that tells us that the journey is not just a physical one. If it were a physical one, Yahweh would have taken us straight there uh, with the shorter pathway. And so it's not about just a physical journey. What we are learning, it is about it's a moral journey, it's psychological, it's spiritual, it is all encompassing, and it takes as long as the time needed for human beings to change. And I don't know if you know this about human beings, but from my experience with myself and other human beings, is to change is very hard. To become something else is very difficult. We are creatures of habit. We are creatures of stability, and that if that stability has looked a certain way for a long period of time, trying to change that takes time. The saying, you can't teach a dog old tricks, right? Where does that come from? What does that mean? It means, especially as you get older and you are more firm and set in your ways, it is even more difficult to change. This is why Yahweh always describes across Torah that he really cherishes this concept of being a child, children. He says, in our youth, don't waste it, really, use your youthful years to grow attached to me. Why? Well, because he's saying it is easier when you're younger to become a free people or a new person or change versus when you're older. And that does not to say that you can't. This is why we have great examples of leaders like Moshe who changed much later. It just means those are even more righteous people, right? Rabia, he has said this often. He didn't become a new person, a changed person until 55, 50, 55 years old. Was it a difficult journey? Yes, he's talked about that at length. But Yahweh says when you're younger, it's easier. And this is why we have to raise our children in a certain way, because, when I think about my niece Kamaya, she quite literally thinks, I think sometimes she thinks that she is Israel. She calls herself an Israel girl. She doesn't fret about it, doesn't think it's odd. She's like, yeah, this is what it is. The only way that I know is this. Well, That's what I'm talking about, beloved. And so when we think about this concept of human beings changing is complicated and difficult, changing hearts, changing souls, changing mindsets and lifestyles and habits, well, then we can extrapolate that to understand that the same is true for political change, right? Political change uh, can't be brought about by politics alone, just like physical change can't be brought out just by physically changing your location and thinking, okay, I physically changed my location. Now I'm going to be a different person. No, those two things you can't look at it in that way. And so with politics, you and this is partially why we are why our politics right now feel uh, paralyzing, destabilizing, and like how are we going backwards in many ways, or and not forward? How are we seeing things from the civil rights era, um, coming back into existence? How are we regressing in certain ways and not moving forward and making progress? It's because of this concept, right? Political change cannot be brought about by politics alone, and that's what people are doing, right? And what it really needs is human transformation. So people have to change, and then thus the political pieces will change with it. We're seeing a mismatch because there's there's a disconnection from the soul. There's a disconnection from Yahweh, and you're just trying to make it about politics. Well, that's going to be a rat race. That's going to be a hamster wheel. It's going to be a circle. That's why it looks like a circle right now, where we just keep going back to the same things and not moving forward. Right? Transformation of humans is necessary. Right? That it comes from habits of the heart. That comes from strenuous process of education, right? Learning, developing. It comes from improved habits connected to Father Yahweh. You know, in many ways, it comes along with knowledge that is born out of painful experiences, right? But you are bringing those painful experiences into the future and you remember them so that they aren't repeated, right? But they're connected to you changing as a human, to your family changing, to all of those things being in tandem. And the long story short there is you can't arrive at freedom merely by escaping slavery. It is won only when I'm talking about politics here, right? A nation, a household takes upon itself uh, the responsibilities of self restraint and courage and patience, all things that we're learning about during this Omer count. I want to pause there and just talk about a pattern that I've noticed as we're talking about self restraint and courage and patience, a pattern that I've noticed during our Omer journey. And that is that the day of Gevurah has landed this year, the day where the attribute of Gevurah is infused into something, right? So today it is Gevurah within Malchut. And each of the Gevurah attributes that have been infused into the weeks we've had, it has landed on a Shabbat. Now, you might think, well, why is that remarkable? Why is that something that we should think about as notable? One, because it doesn't always happen that way. Okay, that's one. Two, it is telling us something that we've got to pay attention to. There's a blessing encoded in just the simple reality that that day of Gevurah is always falling on a Shabbat in this Omer. And At the beginning of this year on Rosh Hashanah and on Yom Kippur, what did we discuss? We discussed how this year of 5786 is the year of the name of Yahweh. It is the year where you add up those numbers and you get 26. This is quite literally a book called Numbers. So clearly there's an important component to numbers. And then in this parsha, yeah, you're actually doing a lot of math. For all you mathematicians out there, you are doing some math, right? It is not all the time where you see verse after verse numbers, and you're seeing things adding up to a total, right? And that total in this parsha, uh, f- uh, um, part of that total, what we see is 603,550, right? That's what we see in, I believe it's chapter 2, or excuse me, 1 verse 46. And so numbers are important, math is important. We've talked about the gematria, right? And how numbers mean names, and how every letter is infused with enormous meaning, including a number, right? And we've gone at length in connecting those numbers. We know how the Hebrew aleph bet, right, are numbers, and Yahweh's name is a number. Yahweh's name is a number. So what is that number? Well, it is 26. And when you have the year of the name of Yahweh, and the number encoded in the 5786 total, right? It tells us that the seal of Yahweh is upon this year. It tells us that something powerful is happening this year. And when we add that knowledge with the knowledge that Gevurah is always falling on Shabbat during the counting of the Omer, well, three things that I've gleaned in terms of what that means that I will share. The one is, it is Yahweh saying how important it is that our discipline and our self-restraint of keeping Shabbat, how it matters. Shabbat matters. And he is saying, use your gevurah, use your discipline, use your self-restraint, use your capacity to erect borders and boundaries, use your strength to honor my Shabbat, because it has eternal meaning for you and for society, for you and for your family, for you and for your household. If your household's not there yet, well, and you are, do it, and you watch and see how it will grow slowly but surely into your household. I don't talk too much about some, things that are that this president of the United States is doing right, because I think there's a lot he's doing wrong and corruptly. Um, I'm those, that's not a secret for any of you for me to say that. But I am always going to say when somebody's getting something right. Donald Trump just recently, just on this concept of Shabbat, we are approaching the 250th year of America being America. And part of what he has done to celebrate that is he has worked in conjunction with those in this faith system, and he has declared for the first time ever, and I think it's either this Shabbat or the next Shabbat, but he has declared it a Shabbat, essentially, that everyone should partake in. And he's issued a proclamation calling for this in advance of 250 years of America. He is saying everybody needs to understand the importance of Shabbat, and it should be a thing that we all do together. Now, again, can talk a lot about the things that I don't like about that Donald Trump is doing, but that is a blessing to have the leader of the free world for the first time ever, not just saying only Jews do Shabbat. He's saying, calling it, calling for a national day where everyone participates and honors Shabbat. All right. That if Donald Trump is doing that, then you can understand what I'm talking about with the gevurah necessary for you to keep and honor Shabbat. The second thing it's telling us is that when we gevurah is also associated with, of course, judgment, right? Well, what is judgment? Judgment is strictness. Judgment is severity. Judgment is consequence. Not doesn't mean it's going to be bad, right? There's good consequence, there's bad consequence, but judgment just means there is a adjudication of an act, actions, uh, a great thing that you've done, all right, a mitzvah that you've done, and you're judged favorably, an error that you've made, and you're judged not so favorably. So Gevurah has with it a strictness associated with it, right? It is why Yahweh didn't create the world with Gevurah, because the world wouldn't be able to stand if he created with Gevurah. That's what he wanted to create it with at first, right? In Hebraic thought, this is what we learn because Yahweh loves judgment. Absolutely. The whole concept of the world to come is built and rooted in judgment. And a society can't stand if there isn't judgment, right? But he decided to build the universe with the foundation of chesed, because what would happen if judgment was the ruling sephirah, the ruling attribute of Yahweh? Again, there would be you'd basically see the account of Noah's Ark every day. You would see the flood every day. You'd see Sodom and the fire that he brought down upon Sodom. You'd see that every day because we don't merit anything good if you just take it into account by our actions. So he built the world with chesed, but gevurah, though, because it means judgment, when it's falling on Shabbat, that is Yahweh telling us that he is infusing in this year, in this moment, in this Omer count, in the reality of 5786, he is sweetening his judgment. He is quite literally sweetening his judgment. He is saying, I am extending mercy in ways that are far greater than I typically would. Why? Well, because when you put Gevurah inside of Shabbat, which is what's happening when it's landing on Shabbat for each of the attributes, it is mercy being showed. It is sweetening our judgments. It is Yahweh saying, I am going to give each and every one of you more compassion, right? And so that you can only say hallelujah to that. That is a beautiful, beautiful thing. Now, that doesn't mean you cancel out what I just said about keeping Shabbat. No, you keep Shabbat. And that just says the mercy and compassion showered upon you in 5786 is going to be even greater because you're doing that thing. So that sweetening our judgments. It is a year of our judgments being sweetened. Beautiful. And then the last thing that I will say about the significance of Gevurah landing on Shabbat for each day of our Omer count is that it is telling us that we really do need to, beloved, restrain our speech on Shabbat. It is really telling us that we need to guard our speech on Shabbat. You know, Yitzhak is when we think about the Sephirot, right? Each one is associated with uh, someone in the Torah, right? So Abraham and Sarah, for example, are what? Chesed. Uh, Yitzhak is what? Gevurah. Yaakov is what? Tiferet, right? So there is an association. There is a character in the Torah who Yahweh says, here is a great model for this attribute for you to learn from, to become and live a lifestyle where you understand and all of the good associated and remove all the bad associated with this attribute. All right. So Yitzhak is, as we've said, someone who is known in Torah as restraining his speech. You don't hear from him often. You hear from him seldomly. And he's someone who is, during the Akida, or the binding of Yitzhak, he could have said a lot of stuff about his father in that moment, Avraham, as he's taking him up to be sacrificed. He could have done a ton of Lashon Hara. He could have really taken that moment and placed blame on everybody. He could have become the victim, victim mentality. Well, poor me. Everything is wrong with me. Look at me. I'm a victim, 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 victim. Yeah. Yahweh doesn't like victim mentality. And we shouldn't think about ourselves as being victims, right? Nowhere do we see Yahweh wants us to think of ourselves as victim and everybody to, for everyone to hear our sob stories and for us to play that card. That's why when I see it, everybody knows the people of Israel have gone through more turmoil and oppression than anyone. Okay, got it. And if we read the Torah, we understand why. And so if you're knowledgeable in that, then you're not going around talking about, look at me, feel sorry for me, or look at us, feel sorry for us. You're saying things like Yosef said to his brothers. Yosef said to his brothers when they were apologizing to him profusely for basically having him being sold into slavery and oppression. He says, oh no, don't be sorry. Yahweh did this to save a great many of people. He could have been the victim there. He could have said, yeah, that's right. You should feel bad about throwing me in a pit and having me slowed. Let me tell you about all the terrible stuff I've been through in Egypt. And let me tell you about spending time in jail. And he could have just, ran amok on being the victim. And he says, no, because I understand that this was for something incredibly powerful and important, not to save me, but to save lives, plural. That's how Yahweh wants us to respond and engage in these types of things. So what I'm getting at is restraining your speech on Shabbat, guarding your speech on Shabbat. Yitzhak is a great example of what that looks like. He doesn't talk unless there's something to say that's connected to what Yahweh wants him to say, basically. You don't see him talking about nonsense. You don't see him talking about things that are outside of his scope. You see him really dealing with an internal battle, right? Which means when you're going through building your internal self, you should be more restrained in your speech. You shouldn't be out talking as much. You shouldn't be trying to talk, 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 talk. Well, because you're not then working on yourself internally. And Gevurah is about you restraining your learning what self-restraint means and you knowing how to overcome your internal demons, your internal battles, you knowing how to guard your thoughts so they don't wander in and become a sin. It's you learning how to think before you speak and not just blurt out loud the first thing that comes to your mind. That's all within what Yitzhak teaches us. That's Gevurah. And so, again, it is restraining your speech on Shabbat. Why? We see in Luke, in the Brit Hadashah, it's Luke 22, I believe. Luke 21, chapter 33. Excuse me, Luke chapter 21, verse 33. It says, this is Joshua speaking. He says, heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will certainly not pass away. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will certainly not pass away. Well, if Joshua is saying his words won't pass away, what he's getting at is your words don't pass away either. Our words are eternal. Our words have lasting impact. One of the greatest, I think, things that those in this faith system haven't really fully understood is just how powerful our words and our thoughts are, in the sense that what you speak and what you think become reality. That's just the truth of the matter. You are speaking things into existence. And I know those are, we've got sayings where we know this, but really though, when you pause to think about how significant that power that Yahweh has given us, why? Well, because he built us in his image and his likeness. And so do you see Yahweh drawing, do you see Yahweh building buildings in Torah? Meaning, do you see Yahweh saying, oh, let me sketch out this thing and then let me go and hire the builders and let me then start putting the bricks together, brick by brick, and here's the completed building with all of the material that I got to build this thing. No, we don't see that. We see how Yahweh creates in Bereshit 1. They're all words. They're all thoughts. They're thoughts and words, and that is it. We see nothing else in terms of how he creates. He speaks, he thinks it, and it becomes a speech, and it becomes reality. Formation, emanation, creation, and then it being filled with purpose. All of that, Yahweh's process of creating something, that's all speech and thoughts. So if we're built in his image and likeness, and we see that all he does to create a reality is thinking and speaking, well, then we have to know that we have been blessed with an extraordinary power, and then we must be responsible with wielding that power. That is our mouth and our thoughts. If you are thinking about someone negatively all the time, if you're thinking about the word, even if you don't speak it, you're thinking, oh, I hope that person gets sick. I hope that person XYZ. You're just thinking the thought. You never utter it out of your mouth. You just think it all the time. Every time you see that person in your mind, you're having a party about destruction about that individual. And I'm talking about it for Donald Trump as well, for everybody out there that dislikes this president. I already said I do, but I'm certainly am not on the bandwagon of, well, let me think about and let me speak into existence something that is Lashon Hara about anyone, let alone, or even more so, someone that I disagree with, right? Oh, I hope he does get assassinated. If anybody is saying that, that is not the right approach, beloved, to deal with to deal with political disagreements. That's not the right approach to deal with power and abuse of power. It's not the right approach. If you're thinking the things, they come into existence. So you don't even have to speak it. Okay, that's all related to Gevurah. And so if if your words never die, that's what Yahshua is telling us. Our words never die. Well, that's Yahshua speaking, not us. Well, last I checked, Yahshua is in us. So he is saying that is the power you have because I'm in you. If I didn't die, if I didn't die and my words don't die, that means you as the conduit, as the vessel speaking it, and I'm in you, that means your words don't die either. So especially because that's the obvious, well, then you then think about that with a day like Shabbat, the most coveted of days, the meaning it is the day that of all of the week, the one day where Yahweh says this is a glimpse and spark of the world to come. This is a glimpse and a spark of eternity. This is the day where existence itself changes. Well, that means you certainly should not, you certainly should be guarding and restraining your speech on Shabbat. That is the sort of the last thing that I gleaned. Okay, from Gevorah falling on Shabbat. Now back to numbers. That was just a little side quest that we went on there with Shabbat and Gevorah. Exodus and Numbers, right? In terms of what they have in common, both tell us of distances that have been traveled and battles that have been fought, right? Both tell us, about a series of breakdowns of morale, right? In both books, in both accounts, the people of Israel romanticize the past, right? We see things where they're essentially sharing that Egypt was not a land of oppression, but a place where they had safety and they had food and security, right? We see them wanting to go back to the past. We see them thinking about it as beautiful versus where they are as terrible. When it's like, that's a little topsy turvy. You wanna talk about the actual bondage as romanticized and beautiful, and your actual freedom as bondage, topsy turvy. But we see it in both. In both, we see that there is a major sin that threatens the entire future of the people. In Shemot or Exodus, it's the golden calf. We will see in the book of Bamidbar and Numbers, we will see it soon, but it's the episode of the spies. There is a key difference in the nature, though, of the journey itself. So in Shemot, we know it is a journey from somewhere, right? It is a journey from, as in the people of Israel are escaping something. In Numbers or Bamidbar, it is a journey to somewhere. They are, we are talking about how to prepare to approach somewhere. We're talking about approach and preparation. We're talking about readying ourselves for receiving. We're talking about going to somewhere and being ready to be in that place versus escaping somewhere and leaving it. Well, this tells us that there are basically two types of liberty, two uh, components of freedom. There's one that is about what it means for, this is the Shemot example or concept, what it means for a slave to acquire something, what a slave acquires, generally speaking, when they're liberated. What are you acquiring when you're liberated from slavery? And the other, in Bamidbar, is we will learn about what it means for um, uh, I guess, well, how would I say this? I guess it's like positive freedom, if you will, right? What it means for you to uh, be in a society that is disciplined, right? A free society that is disciplined, right? That has self-restraint, right? So uh, the Egypt concept, right? The Egypt form of freedom, leaving oppression and acquiring liberation, acquiring things that make you liberated. Right? That could mean that, wow, I am free. I've gained freedom. And now that there's no one here to give me orders, I can do whatever I want. Hence the concept of free people. Now that I'm no longer restrained by this oppressor, I can live a life free of rules. But a society in which everyone is free to do what they choose is not a free society, beloved. It quite literally is anarchy. A free society requires rules and discipline and regulation. A free society requires self-restraint so that my freedom is not doesn't come at the expense of your freedom. That's essentially what would happen if everyone says we're in a free society and I can choose to do what I want when I want to do it. You would at some point, very early on, be encroaching on somebody else's freedoms. Your freedom would cost someone else theirs. Quite literally, what that's Pharaoh in Egypt. A group of people wanted to be free, and that then said, well, we want to be free, but you guys, you got the short end of the stick. So our freedom is gonna come with the payment of your slavery. Our freedom, our rights is gonna come at the expense of yours. Well, that's what would happen. We've seen it too many times to count historically. So a free society requires discipline and self-restraint because otherwise it is anarchy. Well, if that is what we know about a system, a society, a nation, well, that is what we have to know about ourselves first. I live in a free country. Okay, good. But I'm glad you know that inherently. This is a good thing. But that doesn't mean that you are not experiencing anarchy in your soul and in your spirit because you haven't learned yet restraint or discipline, which is necessary. A free society is one that is law governed. And so, what matters in Shemot or Exodus is how people escape from Pharaoh, and what matters in Numbers is how they rise to the challenge of self rule and responsibility. That is how I would characterize the book of Numbers, and then the similarities between those two different books, Numbers and Exodus. And there is a intentional correlation between the two that the text is trying to make sure that we understand. One other way, which we'll get to in just a second, is that number 603,550. That's not just randomly placed in Numbers 146, and then reaffirmed again in Numbers 232. That's the number of the households, the count, the census that's done. What's the total? What's that number? 603,550. Not the first time we see it, beloved. We see that same exact total in, I'll let everybody take a guess. Where might we see that same total? We see it in Shemot. We see it in Exodus or Shemot 38, verse 26. And what makes it fascinating is in that verse, in that chapter and verse, it is talking about the payments that are required to build, or not required, but the payments instructed to build the tabernacle. And Yahweh is taking, I think, half a shekel, I think is something like this, half a shekel offering to build the tabernacle. But the total is still, after all of the half a shekels are added up, the total is still 603,550 people. Well, if you were like me when I was reading, I said, well, that is actually incredible, because what that tells you, what the Torah is telling us, is between that moment where payments were, this is, I believe, the third or fourth census. So this is not the first census we are seeing thus far in our Torah journey. This, over the course of reading the other books from Bereshit through now, this is, I believe, the third or fourth. And so in Shemot or Exodus 38:26, that is another census, but each of the counts have had a different purpose. All right, it's telling us something really blessed, which is that Yahweh cares so much about us. He is counting us all the time and recognizing us all the time. He's saying, yep, I'm a recognize you, and I'm gonna ensure that you know you're valued and that you're necessary and that you play an integral part in my kingdom and in society. Now 3 or 4 times. And so that other time was about folks building up the temple. Well, that number being the same tells us that between then and now, not a single person died, and not a single person was born that would warrant them to be counted. Meaning, we see how babies have been counted, in this parsha. We see what it means to be counted. The rules are there. So if the totals are the same, that means we're at a period of time between these two counts where not only is Yahweh saying these things must be connected, but he's saying that there is something so important about this time frame that you're in, where I caused upon upon the people of Israel, I caused essentially, I used a power of Gevarah, I guess, strength, but restraint. I didn't call for anyone to ascend to Shemaim, and I didn't bring anyone down from Shemaim. I kept the numbers exactly the same. Now, in Hebraic thought, those two moments are about a month apart, by the way. So again, the Torah is not in order that you could say, chronological, I guess. It's not in chronological order where, oh, this happened first, second, third, fourth, fifth. So even though we're talking about a book in Shemot where this number is the same and we're now in a whole nother book, the time frames are about a month away. So in that month time frame, same number of people exactly. Now, let's talk about the Parsha itself. The Parsha itself. The central theme here in Bamidbar is that um, Yahweh is teaching the people of Israel about how to inherit the land, right? But he's also telling the people of Israel that you've got to get prepared because you're going to have to go out and fight battles. So there is the census. When you think about what's the multiple things it's doing at the same time, one of the things it's doing is it's actually a preparation for the people of Israel to know that they are about to fight battles. Why? Well, the inheritance they're going to partake, the land they're going to partake, it requires work and it requires battles. So Yahweh's saying, prepare yourselves because nothing's given to you freely. In this world that I've built, there are no free lunches. Everything is earned. Everything must be fought for. Everything comes at an expense. So he's saying, get ready because yes, you are gaining something, but it will come at a cost, as in you will have to fight battles, fight wars, fight against people who are opposed to you. Hence the census. Specifically, men between the ages of 20 and 60 will need to fight in those battles. It then talks about the instructions as in terms of the layout of the camp, right? So it's arranged in a square with the dwelling place of Yahweh in the middle of it. And then you have each of the camps essentially guarding it and protecting it. But the most important thing that we are learning that I want to focus on is that Yahweh is telling us something critical about and preparing the people of Israel for something critical about the desert. So what does Bamidbar mean? It means in the desert. Some of translations will say in the wilderness, but it means desert or wilderness. So quite literally, the name of the whole book is in the desert. And the name of the parsha that we're in is a twofer, in the desert, in the desert. So Yahweh's saying, I want the people of Israel to know something important about deserts. Now, why I'm connecting this desert piece is because we see in Shemot as well, in Shemot chapter 5, it says, it's verse 1. This is what Moshe and Aaron came to Pharaoh. They said and said to Pharaoh, thus says Yahweh, our Almighty One of Israel, send my people forth so that they may hold a festival for me in the desert. So there's a connection between, again, another connection between Shemot and Bamidbar. The first thing that Moshe and Aaron utter out of their mouths to Pharaoh is Yahweh's instruction to tell Pharaoh, demand that Pharaoh allow the people of Israel not to go move into a city, not to go and move into, move to a new place. He's saying, so that they may hold a festival for me in the desert. Okay. So this book is named in the desert, and that's the first demand of Moshe and Aaron to Pharaoh. Okay, again, deserts are important. Yahweh, the founding drama of what created the Israelite people as a nation under Yahweh, is not in the promised land. It is in the desert. It is on the way. It is in the wilderness. The people of Israel were in a place that had everything. In Egypt, think of Egypt as the most successful and prosperous, whatever would deem as the most successful and prosperous city in the world, right? Well, use that frame of thought, and then you can think of what we're really getting at here. They were already in the most prosperous city and nation in the world. They had everything, everything. Even though they were slaves, it was built up. It was functioning. That's why we keep reading about why the people of Israel, as they were in the wilderness, they kept saying, "Take me back to the city. Take me back to Egypt," to make this point. They had everything. They had everything that they needed to stay alive, even though they were in bondage. They had everything they needed to stay alive. And Yahweh's big moment of saving them, of rescuing them, of redeeming them, was to take them and demand that demand that they go to a desert. This tells us that the desert is important to Yahweh, but we've got to look at it not from the way that I guess the world might look at it. Meaning, okay, in the desert, what do you have? You have silence. It's quiet. You have no distractions. You uh, uh, are with your set apart people. So you're with your tribe, you're with your family, right? It's not saying let each individual go, it's saying let them go together. So you are with your family, you're with your tribe, you're with your household, right? So you are with a set apart people. You've got time by yourself and that you can spend with yourself apart from the set apart people. We see that over and over again with Moshe leaving to spend time directly with Yahweh on his own. But again, the point that I'm making here is it is barren. It is a wasteland. It is nothingness. It's quite literally sand for miles and miles and miles and miles. That's where Yahweh says for the people of Israel, yes, be happy that I've redeemed you from the city with everything you need to survive, and it's built up and functioning. Yes, now I've taken you to a desert with nothing. Okay, well, you might now be able to see a little bit why the people of Israel were reacting the way that they did. They went from everything, even under bondage, they were still surviving, from everything built up to nothing existing. I want to put that in modern terms for us, beloved, so that we're understanding what I'm saying. The desert can be for you unemployment and no job. The desert for you can be no food, not knowing how you're going to get food. The desert is no money. The desert is uncertainty. The desert is not knowing what tomorrow will bring because nothing's even built up or established. I am barren, stripped of everything I've known about in life, everything that I've had, I'm stripped of it. I'm an empty vessel. But Yahweh is saying that all of those components that I've mentioned, the silence and the stillness and the quietness, the no distractions, the ability to be with your set apart people, but also be with yourself, the ability to become an empty vessel, the ability to have space and time to build this empty vessel up. He is saying that is exactly what you should be seeing as a blessing and not a curse. So the no job, the no food, the uncertainty, the not knowing where you're going to live, the anything that you've been stripped of, beloved, anything that you feel like you've been stripped of, you no longer have, you've been thrown into nothingness and emptiness and confusion, and you had all those things previously, you are in a blessed position, is what I'm trying to get at. It is the place that Yahweh demanded the people of Israel go to. That's what Moshe and Aaron were fighting for them to leave everything, to then have nothing and to start all over again, to start at ground zero. We're quite literally reading in this account and in the previous accounts how to build a city. Yahweh is basically telling them what we've seen is really marvelous. Yahweh has said, yes, I'm going to remove you from everything, bring you to nothing. And now I'm going to tell you how to build up your city, build up your character, build up your walls. I'm telling you how to create something from nothing. The desert is a blessing. Why might Yahweh be one? Why might that be the place that Yahweh is having us go to, a place of nothingness and turning it into something? Well, if we're built in Yahweh's image and likeness, the last time I checked in Bereshit 1:1, I'm always going back to Bereshit something because it's always connected to Bereshit some way, somehow. In Bereshit 1:1, do we not read, when Yahweh began creating heaven and earth, the earth was void and desolate. There was darkness on the face of the deep. The earth was void and desolate. It was empty. It was nothing. There's this word in Hebrew, I think it's ex nihilo, is what people commonly say about that verse. Yahweh created the universe ex nihilo, meaning from nothing to something. Now, there's some debate about this. Rabbi has talked about it. Yeah, he said things like, well, you can't call Yahweh nothing. Yahweh's everything. And so I don't think like that framing, but if you get what I'm saying, it is void. The thing that is a blank canvas, right? Before you paint and it's a blank canvas, how do you describe that? You describe it as there's nothing on the canvas, or you call it a blank canvas. That's what we're talking about. Void, empty, nothing, blank. Yahweh's moved the people there because he wants to teach you and us how to build from nothing, how to build a Yahweh land, how to build a Yahweh soul. Why? Well, because Yahweh did it. He created something from a blank canvas, and we are made in his image. So he's quite literally giving us the ability to be just like him. And that is what we learn by him taking us from everything into nothingness. And now we are building something from nothing. So the desert is a blessing. It is where we have our most intimate and direct conversations with the creator of the universe. I don't know of anywhere else in Torah except as in the desert where people can have such direct access to Father Yahweh. He's appearing to them left and right in the desert. He's appearing to Moshe and Aaron and the leaders left and right. Beloved, Shavuot, the Mount Sinai revelation, the time where we receive Yahweh was in the desert. It was literally in the place of nothingness. That is where we, next week on Shavuot, that is where we are receiving Yahweh. That's where the people of Israel saw Yahweh's voice and heard him in ways that aren't even really humanly describable. So that's what I mean when I say in the desert, we have our most intimate and direct path and line of conversation with the creator of the universe. We have front row seats to his classroom in the desert for those who have eyes to see and those who have ears to hear. The world wants you to think that the act of Yahweh removing you from everything, stripping you bare, is a form of punishment. That's what the world would have you say. The world would have you thinking the people you're losing in your lives, from deaths to, again, things about provision and jobs to health. The world would have you think that you should be upset about that. And you should see it as a sign that Yahweh is punishing you. But that is not what is happening. Yahweh stripping you bare. Yahweh is not punishing you. It is a blessing, full stop. The desert is the place where we learn, we try, we fail, we grow, we glow. The desert is the place where his revelation knowledge, his da'at, is received. It is where the names, we are given names and we are counted. It's where he sees us. In the desert is where we get our missions and our tasks and our things to do. We know what our purpose is, right? Our purpose is to walk in the image and likeness of Yahweh. But every year, we are given a new task and a new mission. Every day, we have tasks and missions. But there's bigger tasks and missions. The things that we're all constantly thinking about as humans. What am I supposed to be doing in my life? What am I supposed to be doing with my time? What is my job supposed to be? Those things are given to you in the desert. Why do you think in this parsha, it's all about what? Jobs and responsibilities. You could just see this parsha as, oh, look at that. Everybody has a part to play in the setup, and oh, wow, that's great. The deeper revelation knowledge, beloved, as Yahweh is saying in the desert, he gives you your missions and your responsibilities and your tasks. And most importantly, in the desert is where we learn how to trust in Yahweh, how to be certain that Yahweh will in fact provide. Now, sometimes these desert moments are actually years or decades or generations. Right? We talk about 40 years of being in the desert for the people of Israel. I'm saying that so that we understand that a moment of the desert can, everything for Yahweh is a moment, right? In one moment and everything happened, right? But the way we experience it is with time, and time could start to feel like maybe Yahweh's forgotten about us. So I'm saying this to make sure we fully understand when I'm talking about this desert experience that is really a blessing, even though from all accounts, in the world's way of looking at and measuring things, if you're being stripped of everything, you've got nothing, and you're in a place of uncertainty and anxiety and confusion, you don't know where to go, and you don't know what tomorrow will spring forth. You don't know how you will get to tomorrow. Sometimes those are actually years or decades or generations. And I say that so that we don't grow weary. And so that we don't think that Yahweh has forgotten us because it's been some time or a long time and you are still in that place. Yahweh wants you to remember that you are in the place still that he is closest to his people. That's what Yahweh wants you to remember about the desert. In Tehillim, it is, I believe, 77, if my memory serves right. I'm going to just go here quickly. But we see King David had a similar moment of, Yahweh, you're forgetting about me in this desert place that I'm in. So we're going to read it. Tehillim 77. For the leader, a psalm of Asaph. I cry aloud to Yahweh, and he hears me. On the day of my distress, I am seeking Yahweh. My hands are lifted up. My tears flow all night without ceasing. My heart refuses comfort. When remembering Yahweh, I moan. When I ponder, my spirit fails. You hold my eyelids and keep me from sleeping. I am too troubled to speak. I think about the days of old. That sound like Mitzrayim, or excuse me, the people of Israel thinking about Mitzrayim. By the way, in my verse, in my chapter, the scriptures I'm using, there are 3 salahs that we see in verse 4, in verse 10, and in verse 16. At the end of it, it says salah. It tells you about, again, it's a signal, signpost. What do we say during the counting of the Omer prayer? At the end, we say, Amen, Selah. So this is telling you how things feel in the desert by King David in Tehillim, and what the Omer journey, for example, might feel like. What the journey of being in the desert, which is really what the Omer journey is about, feels like. He says in verse 6, I think about the days of old, the years of long ago. In the night, I remember my song. I commune with myself. What's that? What do we say the desert was about? About spending time with yourself. Gevurah, learning restraint, building your internal systems. I commune with myself. My spirit inquires. What his spirit is inquiring. He says, will Yahweh reject forever? Will he never show his favor again? Has his favor permanently disappeared? Is his word to all generations done away? Has Yahweh forgotten to be compassionate? Has he in anger withheld his mercy? Selah. Then I add, that's my weakness. Supposing the Most High's right hand could change. So I will remind myself of Yahweh's doings. Yes, I will remember your wonder of old. I will meditate on your work and think about what you have done. Yahweh, your way is in kadoshness. What Almighty One is as great as Yahweh? You are the Almighty One who does wonders. You revealed your strength to the peoples. With your arm, you redeemed your people, the descendants of Yaakov and Yosef. Selah. The water saw you, Yahweh. The water saw you and withered in anguish, agitated to its depths. The clouds poured water. The skies thundered, and your arrows flashed here and there. The sound of your thunder was in the whirlwind. The lightning flashes lit up the world. The earth trembled and shook. Your way went through the sea. your path through the turbulent waters. Your path through the turbulent waters. Yahweh's pathway isn't around around turbulence. Yahweh's pathway is through the turbulent waters. But your footsteps could not be traced. Mysterious, secret, hidden, only for eyes to hear that know and eyes to see that know and ears to hear that know. You led your people like a flock under the care of Moshe and Aaron. Okay, yes, we are. I think we then can understand why the desert can feel like it feels and how you can be at a point where you're so fed up or exhausted and you're thinking, have I been forgotten? Am I no longer in a position of Yahweh's favor pouring upon my life? Well, why would you be saying that? Well, because I don't, you're stripped of things. You've lost things. You're confused. Yeah, it is human nature to have those thoughts. Hence, why we see Yahweh inspired this Tehillim in the first place to tell us, yeah, you're going to have those thoughts in the wilderness and in the desert, but how do you recover from those thoughts? And why are you having those thoughts in the first place? You're having them in the first place so that you can understand and learn about what it means to trust Yahweh. And what it means to trust Yahweh is to reject the thoughts that come that say Yahweh's forgotten about you. So we're seeing it in very literal terms here. Hasatan is going to whisper in your ear things like, I'm donezo. I am never going to recover from this thing. I might as well give up. Yahweh's no longer compassionate. All of the things that I had in the past, that the immense blessings that I had, I no longer have the favor of Yahweh. Something's clearly changed. I must have done something horrible. And Yahweh says to learn trusting me means to reject that and do what you see in verse 11. And it says, then I add, that's my weakness. I love it. Self-accountability. If you got to wonder, if you're an overthinker, if you're a self-critical person looking at everything as doomsday, hey, you got a partner in King David, because he said, that's my weakness. Let me take some accountability. That's my weakness. I shouldn't be thinking that. Let me reject those thoughts. And now let me do the thing. Let me take the strategy that is going to bring me up out of this mental, psychological pit that I've placed myself in because of my thoughts. I placed myself in this position because of my thoughts and my words. Yahweh is saying the desert is a blessing. He's been saying that for the totality of his Torah. You, the one who letting the thoughts of Hasatan enter your mind, take hold of you, make you feel like Yahweh has forgotten you, make you feel like Yahweh is no longer showing you favor and mercy, make you feel like you're being punished. Thus, you're accepting it, and thus you're wallowing. Again, playing victim. He says, that's my weakness. My strategy to overcome this and come up out of this is let me remind myself of Yahweh's doing. Oh, Torah is the best teacher that you've got. Yeah, you can go to a counselor. Yes, do all the things that are about, speaking to therapists. I support it. I agree with it. I have one. I do it. And make sure you've got in your plan to meditate and read the Torah, because it is going to help you in greater ways than your therapist or your counselor and your rabbi or your teacher. You've got to open up this book and internalize it. He says, my strategy for coming up out of this is reminding myself of Yahweh's doing, reminding myself that it was Yahweh that has blessed my socks off up to this point. I'm going to meditate on just how good Yahweh is. We talked about the beginning, singing songs, and how that gets you back into what? A place of the ability to be reattached to Yahweh. So I will remind myself of Yahweh's doings. I will meditate on your work and think about what you have done. Well, there's a song for that Rabia wrote. Look what Yahweh has done. Look what Yahweh has done. He healed my body. He touched my soul. He saved me. I'm getting the lyrics wrong, but you get the point. Just in time, I'm gonna praise his name. Each day is just the same. Come help me praise him. Look what Yahweh has done. That quite literally is what we're reading here. That's the strategy. Sing a new song, meditate, think about what Yahweh has done. That's how you remember that the desert, because then you will get to the point where you see the desert is a blessing. When you meditate on the things of the past that Yahweh has done, you will then see that in every moment where something was on the horizon that was new and beautiful, well, it came from a moment of nothingness. Meaning, you in your past, I know this is true for me. I didn't just, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. Meaning, I've had a lot of desert moments. In fact, I'm in one right now. And so, what I know is before the light comes, there's darkness. There's darkness first, and then there's light. That is how it works in the system. You've got to remember and meditate on what that has been for your life. And remember, oh, yeah, Yahweh has pulled me through each and every instance where I thought, I don't know if I can recover from this. I don't know where my next is. I don't know. It has worked flawlessly. Not to say there wasn't pain, not to say there wasn't struggle, not to say there wasn't heartache, but I say it worked flawlessly. Flawlessly meaning there's always salvation and redemption. Yahweh is, if you see this in Torah, Yahweh is, again, about the desert. He is closest to people who are in those positions. Typically, those are people who are broken. Typically, those are people who are impoverished, poor of something. It doesn't have to be money. Just poverty is varied. People who are widows, people who've lost someone, something. He's really close to these people who are in a state of transition from one place to another. If your life feels like it is in transition, this is where Yahweh is closest to you. You are in the desert. Transitions on the way, that's where Yahweh is. In the transitions, on the way is Yahweh. Yahweh Road is right there. He's near. And if you've been there for a long time, some of you might be thinking, oh, wow, I've been here for, I don't know, 40 years. I've been here for, I don't know. If you've been there a long time, it just means Yahweh needed you in the desert for that long, because whatever mission he is going to instruct you to do when you finally listen to him in the desert is going to be massive. It's going to be a life-saving mission. It's going to be so instrumental. I think about my brother, who I've talked about before, who has struggled for quite some time, has struggled in the desert, from homelessness to addiction, etc. And if I were him, I would, of course, be thinking what I just read about with King David. I would, of course, be thinking, Yahweh has forgotten about me. But I've only seen my brother's mission as something so incredibly blessed that he had to be in the desert for as long as he was. His recovery and the thing that his Yahweh is going to place on his spirit to do is going to save a great many of lives. I know it for a fact. Right now, he's on the cusp, on the brink of entering Israel, meaning he is doing better than I've ever seen him. This is in large part thanks to the village around him, most notably my mother, who has been his supporter along and in the desert. By the way, don't give up on people when they're in their desert. We love them even more when they're in their desert. Don't use your judgment, don't use your gevarah to throw stones on people and to stomp them down when they are already down. Don't lower other people to lift yourself up. Don't step all over people. Help them up. Support them. That doesn't mean give them ultimatums, by the way. That doesn't mean either do this and become this lifestyle or I'm out of here. No, because I don't see where Yahweh has done that ever. In fact, I see that Yahweh quite literally always is there. He doesn't, that's what we just read, he doesn't forget about us. He doesn't, he is more helpful in our desert moments. He is more accessible in our desert moments. That's what you have to be, beloved, with the people in your life who are experiencing the same. And a thing that I know about deserts are you're not going to find people waving their hands up saying, hello, I'm in the desert, help me. Yeah, the thing about a desert experience is it is by definition in many ways shameful, in many ways embarrassing, in many ways you feel like a burden, in many ways you feel all the things we talked about on the song this morning that we were seeing again in its recreation: shame, condemnation, guilt, reproach. Those were all things that come about from desert experiences. That's just a fact. So that means those people, they need camaraderie and support, not ultimatums. They need more love. That means you've got to go out of your way, because have you ever known of someone who's lost in the desert, running over and trying to, run to someone they see with full speed ahead when they're tired and exhausted. And I don't even know if that's a person up there. Think of it that way. You give them support. So this is something that my mother has done, and my brother is in the best position I have ever seen him. His mission, the thing that he's going to be given as an instruction, is going to be so powerful. So think about the length of time. One way to think about it is the length of time that you've been in the desert is not a byproduct of, again, how how much you're being punished. It is a byproduct of how much you have to learn trust in Yahweh, because whatever your mission is, you're going to need to trust him a lot. If you repeat in desert experiences over and over and over again, which we all do, by the way, some of us just refuse to acknowledge it. But it means you need to build up things to such a degree, because whatever is right in front of you, hence the census that we're taking right now for the war, whatever's up in front of you, the battle that he's going to say you must lead in order to bring about salvation, you must lead, whatever that is, it requires the things that he is testing to build you up in the desert. Most notably is trust and certainty that Yahweh is Yahweh alone, Yahweh Echad. There is no other. Trust as in, don't be going off and building a golden calf because you think I've disappeared. Don't go off and because things aren't working on your time frame, now all of a sudden I'm gonna put myself in a pit and depression and I no longer have trust in Yahweh. Trust and certainty in Yahweh, which is at the underpinnings of everything we're talking about. The people of Israel lacked it. That is the most important component of desert experiences and what Yahweh is trying to teach. Back in Luke, no, it was in, actually it was Tehillim, it was Psalms. That Tehillim 77, I just want to read one thing from 78. And it says, listen, my people, to my teaching. Turn your ears to the words from my mouth. I will speak to you in parables and explain mysteries from days of old. Okay. Then we see, if we turn, still in that same Tehillim, 78, verse 21, it says, therefore, when Yahweh heard, let's go to verse 17. It says, yet they sin still more against him, as in Yahweh. So this is the people of Israel. I guess let me just read nearly the whole thing. Start at verse 5. He raised up a testimony in Yaakov and established a Torah in Israel. He instructed our ancestors to make this known to their children so that the next generation would know it. The children not yet born, who would themselves arise and tell their own children, who could then put their confidence, trust and confidence are the same thing, put their confidence in Yahweh, not forgetting Yahweh's deeds, but obeying his mitzvot. Then they would not be like their ancestors, a stubborn, rebellious generation. A generation with unprepared hearts, with spirits unfaithful to Yahweh. Meaning in the desert, when you become, it's like you have two ways of operating in the desert. You have the way that's the blessing, and then you have the way where you become stubborn, rebellious, and as we see here, a generation with unprepared hearts and unfaithful. How are you going to treat your desert experience depends, but there is a way. Our ancestors did build a pathway, unfortunately for us, where we certainly can experience the desert as this, becoming rebellious and stubborn and unfaithful. And then it starts recounting the people of Ephraim though armed with bows and arrows, turned their backs on the day of battle. Uh-oh. Well, aren't we reading right now? I think we read about the camp of this camp and how many people are prepared for battle. Yeah, this is preparing your hearts for battle. Well, we see here, it says at some point, these people, although they were armed with everything that they needed to succeed, Yahweh gave them everything they needed to succeed. Instead, they didn't have what? Courage. What does a free nation and a free society and a free people look like? What do we talk about? Self-restraint, courage, patience, I think were the three words we used. Well, you got to have courage to believe in yourself and what Yahweh has told you to do it. That takes courage. Otherwise, yeah, you were going to do here where it says they turned their backs on the day of battle. They did not keep the covenant of Yahweh and refused to live by his Torah. They forgot what he had done, his wonders which he had shown them. He had done wonderful things in the presence of their ancestors in the land of Egypt, in the region of Zaun. He split the sea and made them pass through. He made the waters stand up like a wall. He also led them by day with a cloud and all night long with light from a fire. He broke apart the rocks in the desert and let them drink as if from boundless depths. Yes, he brought streams out of the rock, making the water flow down like rivers. Yet they all sinned still more against him, rebelling in the wilderness against the Most High. In their hearts, they tested Yahweh by demanding food that would satisfy their cravings. Yes, they spoke against Yahweh by asking, can Yahweh spread a table in the desert? True, he struck the rock and water gushed out until it overflowed. But what about bread? Can he give that? Can he provide meat for his people? That when it says Yahweh doesn't like to be tested, right? It's like that, right? Where you've already got enough, you've got what you need, and you then are saying things like, well, I need more. Versus doing the hard work of building yourself up, building your city up, building your soul up in the desert moment. Yahweh wants you focused on growing more intimate with him, deepening your practice and your practice in reading the Torah, deepening your prayer, deepening all of these things. And instead, what these people were doing was saying, oh, I'm not going to do any of that. Instead, I guess I am getting, some of this food and some of this water. Cool. I guess we did get a few miracles, but I have cravings for meat. I want meat and I want bread. I'm not satisfied with my current lot. I want more. Therefore, we read in verse 21, when Yahweh heard, he was angry. Fire blazed up against Yaakov. His anger mounted against Israel because they had no trust in Yahweh. Your version might say faith. Faith is not the best word. Faith has become Christianized too much. It's like, oh, faith. It feels like like you don't really need to do much. Oh, I have faith. Oh, cool. We all have faith. No, it is about certainty. I am certain I will win this battle. I will not even waver in my mind. I am certain Yahweh is going to provide. I will not waver in my mind. I am certain Yahweh is close and near to me. I will not waver in my mind about whether or not I go back to church because this faith system, when I got into this faith system, I was put in the desert. Yeah, that's what he does. Meaning, you ask anybody in this faith system, when they first come to the knowledge of Yahweh, when they're redeemed and saved, the first things that they go through typically are not, wow, look at all these blessings. You get stripped of things, you lose people, it is not the worldly definition of prosperity. But Yahweh's saying that is prosperity, because all the things that I just told you about what the desert means, you are going to get to know Yahweh. Sometimes that requires people not being here. Sometimes that requires people not being here because, I don't know, it's going to push you to connect to something greater and deeper. Not to say that that's the reason they've gone, but that is sometimes what it means to lose people. And I'm not just talking about death, I'm talking about relationships. If you are single, if you are divorced, and you are spending your time searching for your next partner versus seeking Yahweh and growing closer to him, you're getting your desert experience wrong, beloved. If you are unemployed right now, or retired, or have lost clients, or there's been a stream of money that's been lost, and I'm only talking about it in these ways because this is how the world operates. So forgive me, but I hope this is how most people relate to whether I have or don't. It's like, do I have a job? Do I have things to do? Do I have purpose? We've done a summation of what life is based upon these worldly things. So to connect it to it, I've got to talk about them. But it is much more than that. But I hope you get the picture on the connection I'm making, right? If you're unemployed, retired, you've lost some sort of stream, you stop trying to go and find a new job or more clients. Or if you're retired, stop trying to find stuff to fill your time. It quite literally is Yahweh trying to get you to go deeper with him and to grow into a more intimate relationship with him. That certainty and trust in Yahweh means the opportunity will come when it is supposed to come. But it's certainly, if you've been stripped of things, and your first thing is to, let me search, I got to search. If you've been removed from a relationship, divorced, let me get back on Tinder and Hinge. Let me search. That's not what the desert's for. Those things are not there so that you can grow certainty in him, which means you have to grow and go deeper with him. The amount of time that you're spending searching, you should be spending growing with him, trying to elevate in your walk. We don't have sacrifice today, as in bulls and birds and lambs, and those things don't exist. But you want to know what scripture tells us is a sacrifice that still exists? Prayer. Opening your mouth to Yahweh. Yahweh literally has described in the Torah that prayer is a sacrifice. So that means, if you are really thinking about that, well, how might I be growing deeper, growing in Yahweh, praying more? And not just the same prayers. Have we tried? If you are someone who is consistent in your prayer, and you pray the prayers that have been written by our ancestors, the Amida, the prayers that have been written by Rabia, if you only read those prayers only, Yahweh saying, go deeper with me. Yahweh is saying, I want you to be like King David, beloved, and I want you to write a new prayer to me. I want you to be like King David. I want you to write a new song to me. I want you to establish a new prayer based upon your reality right now. Because that's what King David did. Yes, we love what he's written, and they are words that are eternal, But Yahweh says that you are a living Torah. You, not 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 the person over there. You are a living Torah. You take the next step and grow deeper by praying from the meditation of your heart. Yahweh doesn't want us to become robots where we're so, we're saying the Amida, we're doing the thing. He wants us to become more intimate with him. Intimacy, beloved, is not robotic. Intimacy is an experience. Yahweh wants you to cry with him. Yahweh wants you to laugh with him. Yahweh wants you to utter words that are new, that are about you, acknowledging where you are, what you are reminding yourself of what he's done. If you do great at jotting them down in a journal, Yahweh's saying, speak to the rock. If you, only pray that way, meaning you only pray from a place of meditation of the heart and free flow, well, Yahweh's saying, well, learn some consistency. Actually, do the Amida. He's telling you, if you're in the opposite camp, and that's the only way you pray, he's saying, elevate with me, grow deeper with me by, I want you to add some structure. Try waking up at a certain time and doing it every single day. Try doing the prayers written that have such majestic powers imbued in them by our forefathers and foremothers. Try that. I'm saying there is a way to elevate our prayer and our sacrifice of prayer to Yahweh. Those are key things that we're talking about here with the growing deeper with Yahweh. If you've got a young person in your life, a sibling, a cousin, someone, a niece or a nephew, start reading the Parsha and then teaching them the Parsha, but in the way that is understandable to them. What does that have you do, beloved? That has you fulfilling lots of mitzvah that Yahweh is saying you surely will grow more intimate and deeper with him in your connection, because not only are you teaching my Torah, you're raising up my children. Wow. And you yourself are learning, because anytime you have to teach, one thing I love about this, what was seemingly forced upon me that I'm learning to love greatly. But one thing I love about it is, to teach, I gotta what? I gotta learn. So to teach a child, not only do you have to learn it, but then you have to say, Yahweh, help me distill this into its simplest way so that a child will understand and gravitate toward it. There's a way for us all to go deeper and to deepen and grow more intimate with Yahweh. And our time in the desert must be spent there, not searching. And I talk about retirement because retirement has this world in just utter confusion about what retirement is, unfortunately. Retirement does not mean you have nothing to do. So what you have a lot of retired people doing is you have a lot of retired people who are just trying to fill their day with stuff, activities, to become busy. The blessing of retirement is it is actually a desert experience. Just FYI, I know might be stark, but it is a desert experience because it brings about all the feelings as the same person who is in retirement. You put a person who's, I don't know, lost something and unemployed, maybe it was taken from them, forced, versus someone who, willfully and retired by choice. Well, if you take not the act of how they got there, but the place, that sort of some of the things that they feel inside, they're going to mirror, right? Most retired people say things like, you know, um, either I'm looking for purpose, I'm looking for meaning, I don't know what to do with my time. There is confusion that happens, especially when you first enter retirement. I mean, once you're sort of an established retired person, it's different. But when you first enter, things feel exactly like the other person who may have been stripped of something. So it is a desert experience. I talk about it because Moshe was retired. That's how anyone would qualify his experience in 2026. Moshe was retired, as in he had a lot of jobs, he had done a lot of stuff, and he was in his golden years. He's 80 something years old in the desert, confused. And that's the moment that Yahweh says, now I am going to save the best for last. And this is what I'm trying to get into our retired folks. Yahweh, in so many examples over and over and over in Torah, we see it is people up in age, 70 plus, 80 plus. Abraham and Sarah were 100 or something like this when they had their child. But we see people we see Yahweh doing a thing where he's saying, I think we need to change the way that people are thinking about the later years. I save the best for last, if you so believe it. If you are certain to know that your time here on earth is still requires you to download from Yahweh your mission. So Moshe was retired, and then he was given the most important and significant thing from Yahweh to do for his whole reason for being on earth at the end. Why? Well, because he still had eyes to see and ears to hear. When he was in the desert, he wasn't victim. He wasn't searching in all the wrong places trying to fill up his time. He was able to notice the burning bush that wasn't being consumed. Thus, he was growing deeper in his relationship with Yahweh and his fellowship with Yahweh. And he was able to hear Yahweh's voice. What do we say about the deserts versus the city? The city is loud. The city has a lot of distractions. The city has everything already established and built up. And what is the desert? It is empty. It's quiet. It's not built up. That means Yahweh is saying, in order to see me and hear me, you need to go to the desert. You need to go to a quiet place. You need to be stripped of the things that are causing you to be distracted. Your phone is distracting you. Don't bring your phone to the desert. You're going to be in the desert like the people of Israel, rebellious and stubborn, because and not able to enter anywhere because you are not going to master the desert because you are literally distracted in the desert. Be in the desert with Yahweh. That's what Moshe did in his retirement. He was still able to see and hear him. He saw that bush. He said, oh, this is Yahweh here. Gave him this mission in retirement. Especially those of you who are older and retired and who are fully healthy, Yahweh is not giving you any indication that you are slowing down. He's not giving you any indication that your mission is decreased. If you are healthy and you are retired, Yahweh is saying your mission is more important than the young person. Retired and fully healthy, and even if you're not, but in retirement, you've got a specific subset of people. So I'm just illuminating a specific subset. Fully healthy and retired. Yahweh says you're about to be like Moshe. All you have to do is be certain that you are not done. All you have to do is be certain that your mission is not just to be on the out, sort of in the background. You have to be certain that Yahweh still is using you to be a leader. Yahweh doesn't want you in the peanut gallery. Yahweh wants you to be certain that the job or the jobs you had in the past, yeah, be thankful for them. They were just the prelude to the most important mission that he is going to give you next. Those were just the preludes. Those were just the introductions. So in the desert, we learn to stop trying to fill your day with stuff, to seek Yahweh. So in prayer, how do we do this, Shalom? Okay, got it. Okay, in prayer, you say things like Yahweh. And you can repeat this after me if you're really genuine and serious about this. Yahweh, thank you for placing me in the desert. Yahweh, thank you for your afflictions in the desert. Thank you for your afflictions in bringing in that placed me here in the desert. Thank you for providing everything I need. And even things I sinfully crave. Pause, side note, I didn't finish this in Tehillim, but the reason why I say sinfully crave here is because Yahweh, in verse 21, after he mounted his anger against the people of Israel for wanting more, they're testing him, wanting bread and meat versus what was provided in their wilderness desert moment. He says they had no certainty in Yahweh, no trust in his power to save. And then it says in verse 23, so he instructed the skies above and opened the doors of heaven. He rained down the manna on them as food. He gave them grain from heaven. Mortals ate the bread of angels. He provided for them to the full. He stirred up the east wind in heaven, brought on the south wind by his power, and rained down meat on them like dust, birds flying thick as the sand on the seashore. He let them fall in the middle of their camp, all around their tents. So they ate till they were satisfied. He gave them what they craved. They were still fulfilling their craving. The food was still in their mouths. When the anger of Yahweh rose up against them and slaughtered their strongest men, laying low the young men of Israel. What am I getting at here? Yahweh listens so much to what we are asking for and what we want, even when he's like, you're not even doing what you're supposed to do. You're focus on the moment and what you're supposed to be doing. Here you are trying to do everything. So Yahweh is so loving that what we just read here is Yahweh got mad and angry at the fact that the people of Israel were not involved intimately as they should be in their desert experience, meaning growing more deeply, learning, becoming free people. Instead, I need more, not satisfied with where they were, asking for more. And Yahweh, in his anger, by the way, he says, I was angry. His anger produced everything that they were craving. I don't know if you guys are clocking what Yahweh how good Yahweh is and how much he hears us and does the saying, be careful what you ask for. That saying comes from here. These folks asked for more. Yahweh said, you're missing the point, and I'm angry, but because I've made everything, I've built the foundation of the universe on chesed, overflowing loving kindness, even my anger is love. Even my anger gives you the things that you crave. My anger gives you the things that you don't need. I know you don't need it. The things that you think you need, or the things that you sinfully want, I'm going to still give it to you, actually. Just so you know how much I love you. But we see this to not repeat it. We don't see it to follow in the example, just to be clear. We see it because I think we all maybe can relate to how we've done this. I know I certainly have, but we don't see it to go in that direction. That's why we see the consequences of that. He'll give it to you, but then, okay, great. Maybe you're no longer, you've the door for the portal that was about saving a great many of people. Maybe that's going to close, and you know, you clearly aren't going to be able to handle the battle that I'm going to put you in, handle the mission that I'm going to give you. You've lost your trust in me. You've become only focused on material possessions. You can't even understand what this moment is and that it's a blessing. All those things combined. Okay, we see the consequence, which is not good. So don't do this. We should try to stay away from this. I just share it as an example for why I say in this prayer, right? Yahweh, thank you for all of these things, because we can still be grateful about the things that he gave us that we crave, that we didn't need or didn't deserve, or that were sinful, and he still provided it. That's, you don't respond to that and say, oh, Yahweh, I'm not grateful for that. You still are grateful for it, and you try not to do it. And I'm saying we start off with gratitude in the desert because it's always good to approach Yahweh with gratitude first. Beloved, don't start off your prayers with Yahweh, give me, I need. That we plugging into the socket like that. Well, I don't know. Certainly is not what I would do, because Yahweh already knows what you need. He's Yahweh. He's all knowing. So he knows that. The part of prayer is not for you to share with him something he doesn't know. Prayer is about you growing deeper in your trust, certainty, and faith, you growing deeper in knowing Yahweh, you being able to then hear Yahweh, but Yahweh also seeing that you can sacrifice some time in your day for him, because you know what the thing that's going to be most helpful for Yahweh, knowing whether or not you're going to sacrifice your time for his mission that's going to bring about all the material stuff that you want so desperately. You want to know what he's going to look at first? Well, do they even know how to sacrifice their time to hearing me and my instructions? Because if I give them all of this, you know what can happen very easily? They can become corrupted, greedy pharaohs. Maybe, just maybe, Yahweh is saying, I got to move you to the desert so you can understand my voice versus Hasatan's voice. Because you have both that whisper in your ear. We all do. I need to move you to the desert so that you can understand my voice, my instructions, my mission. But I'm not going to give you all the things that are going to produce these material benefits in this world, which we shouldn't be concerned about. But again, I digress. Well, I'm not going to give you all of that, and you don't even know how to set aside time to hear me, because hearing me requires you praying. Because there's no way, there's no reality in which we've read all of this stuff about the temple being, the tabernacle being built, Yahweh's, the different curtains who can enter in the presence of Yahweh, and it's being descending upon this one place to this one high priest. We can't see all of that and think that you are going to hear Yahweh and not have to connect to him through the power of prayer. He wants to see that you can, in fact, take some time to first do these things, because that then will tell him, you've done well with a little, now I can give you a lot. Yahweh, speak. After you get done with the gratitude, you then just say, Yahweh, speak to me, because your servant is listening. That's what we read in Samuel. Speak to me, because your servant is listening, as in I am listening, as in Hanani, here I am, Yahweh. If you've never done the Hanani prayer, the Hanani, we don't see Hanani, here I am. That's not in Torah for us to just read. It is so we can actually utter out of our mouth over and over and over again, especially in the desert moments. This is what Moshe told Yahweh when he says, Moshe, he called him and he said, Hanani, here I am. If you've not said those words, beloved, you have the text in the Torah is codes. They're mysteries. It's coded for how to actually advance and grow and get all the things that we're talking about here. So the code is there. So you've got to then use it and utter it out of your mouth. And you've got to do it with sincerity. You say, Yahweh, speak, your servant is listening. Hanani, Yahweh, speak to me about what it is that you want me to learn and grow and become in my desert. Yahweh, what is my next task that is going to be fulfilling your will here in Eretz, earth, as it is in Shemaim, heaven? If you don't actually ask Yahweh what your next mission or task is, you will never know. The ask and you shall receive, that's not a myth, that's quite literal. Yahweh's waiting for you to actually ask the right questions. He's wanting to see what you say to him. This is why we see this account between Abraham and Yahweh, when Abraham builds the courage finally to talk to Yahweh like he's talking to his married partner, which is intimate. At some point, we're supposed to elevate in our relationship with Yahweh in the same way you think about your wife or your husband. That's what the Torah says in terms of how we grow. And so at some point, when you're just starting off, you may not have, you see Yahweh as, your servant and he's master, or he's parent and your child. The reason why we see all these interplays with how Yahweh sees us and engages with us is because it differs and it changes and we can grow more intimate. We're not supposed to stay in the mindset of servant master or child parent. We're supposed to get to husband wife. Yahweh is the groom and we are the bride. And so in that type of love language, Yahweh wants you to do things like what Abraham did, where he finally saw that and he said, Yahweh, you said what? You about to destroy Sodom? You about to destroy the, hold on. No, I don't think you should do that actually. So let's see, if there were 50 people Would you destroy it on the account of 50 people being good people, righteous people being here? Would you destroy it on the account of 45? And what we see is Yahweh is doing what to each of those? He's answering. He says, I wouldn't destroy it if there were 50. No, my son, I wouldn't destroy it if there were 45. Well, you see, Abraham, he said, all right, just like, I think about my parents arguing sometimes, and I'm not saying this to call this an argument, but sometimes they'd go back and forth, and I did this phrase that we'd use, chewing the rag, meaning you're gonna keep talking about the same thing. Well, that's really what we see in this account. Abraham literally is like, okay, well, let me focus on this a little bit more. Let me go 50, I'm gonna go 45, I'm gonna go 30, I'm gonna go 15, I'm gonna go 10, until finally he's like, okay, well, Yahweh's really engaging with me. I guess I've got my answer. And he stops at 10. And each one, Yahweh responds. But he courageously says, Yahweh, I see you as my spouse, and I think we should reconsider that. How do we know Yahweh wants us to think of when Yahweh goes down and is in the Tower of Babel? Yahweh can do it himself. He's Yahweh. Yahweh can go down and do the confusing of the language in that Tower of Babel moment on his own. But he says to what? His partners. He says, let us go down and confuse their language, lest they be able to build and reach me. Right? Let us. What is that teaching? Yahweh is teaching us there how to communicate with him. He's showing you how he communicates so that we can know that we can get to a place where we say, Yahweh, I don't think we should do that. Because in an elevated, deeper, more intimate relationship with the creator of the universe, when you're husband and wife, what does that really mean in our knowledge? It is echad, oneness. So no longer are you even seeing yourself as separate from Yahweh. I hope you understood that, beloved. You can reach the point where your relationship with Yahweh is like the oneness of husband and wife, where you are communicating and engaging in on an intimate level of your relationship with the creator, where you are discussing with Yahweh in terms of co-partnership, as in we. Not you, can you do this? Yahweh, can we do this? You got to ask Yahweh what your next mission is. You have to actually utter it out of your mouth. Yahweh, what would you have me to do in my, I'm ready to receive your information, your download. I'm ready to receive and hear your voice. What is it that you would have me to do in my next act after I've been retired? What is your mission for me? Hanani, I'm ready to hear it, because now I'm certain that I'm here for the last, the saving the best for last. And then, beloved, at some point, Yahweh will say to you at the end of your desert experience, he will say, you're prepared. You're well prepared to leave the desert and go into the city and go into the field. You're now ready to enter that land. We'll get into this next time, but Torah uses the field. You'll see places where field is used, city is used, desert is used. It's telling us that there is a difference in these places, right? Desert, city, field. And that gives us knowledge about even, where we are next, right? Remember, Yosef was in Egypt well before the people of Israel were in Egypt. He was a forerunner. He laid the foundation. So, meaning you're in the city, you're in the field, you're in the desert. Yahweh those are codes for, for you to know that you're being prepared for something. Yes, sometimes you're being prepared for the desert and you're in the city. Sometimes you're being prepared for the field and you're in the desert. Okay, we'll talk about that next time, but I'm just sharing it as for all of you who've been in the desert. There are some of you who are listening where you've been in the desert, and Yahweh is now saying, it is time for you to move into the city. Go into the city. You're ready. You're prepared. He's giving you every sign imaginable to say it's time to go into the city. You're no longer, you've been rebuilt, and you've reached the point where following this Shavuot, I would wait for Shavuot, important day. Following the Shavuot, you will be infused with the new level of your soul to take the next journey to the city or to the field or to the desert. Everybody is in a different place. How do we know the census, by the way, has everything to do with receiving things from Mount Sinai and revelation knowledge and whatnot? I'm going to try and do this more, but I'm remembering today, I'm connecting the Parsha to the Brit Hadashah. You still can, if you're turned already in Luke, keep there, because that is where we will see this on full display. It's in Luke chapter 2, verse 1. It says, around this time, Emperor Augustus issued an order for a census to be taken throughout the empire. This registration, the first of its kind, took place when Quirinius was governing in Syria. Everyone went to be registered, each to his own town. So Joseph, because he was a descendant of David, went up from the town of Nazareth in the Galilee to the town of David called Bethlehem in Yehuda, to be registered with Miriam, to whom he was engaged and who was pregnant. While they were there, the time came for her to give birth, and she gave birth to her first child, a son. She wrapped him in cloth and laid him down in a feeding trough, because there was no space for them in the living quarters. In the countryside nearby were some shepherds spending the night in the fields. What did I just say about field, city, desert? Okay, again, we'll get to it another time, but just noting it. Spending the night in the fields, guarding their flocks, when an angel of Yahweh appeared to them, and the Shekinah of Yahweh shone around them. They were terrified, but the angel said to them, don't be afraid, because I am here announcing to you good news that will bring great joy to all people. This very day in the town of David, there was born for you a deliverer who is the Mashiach, Yahshua. Here is how you will know. You will find a baby wrapped in cloth and lying in the feeding trough. Suddenly, along with the angel was a vast army from heaven praising Yahweh. Quote, in the highest heaven, praise and esteem to Yahweh, and on earth, shalom among people of goodwill. Beloved, this literally is telling, this is Shavuot, by the way, just so everybody knows. This is talking about Shavuot. Why I say we are waiting till this day of Shavuot. We're eagerly approaching it. We're a week left. We've been growing. Some of us are going to be able to leave the desert after Shavuot, because we will have a new light from the Shemaim, from the tree of life, a new infusion of the light of Yahweh through Yeshua, through the power of his spirit, Yahweh Kodesh, infused in us on that day. on that appointed time. That's what Yahweh says he's doing on that day. I'm not making it up. That's what it says. Moses received the Torah at Mount Sinai on Shavuot. The world, we received the Torah, as in the living Torah, on that day. The birth happened on that day. This experience here is Shavuot, down to suddenly the angel was with a vast army from heaven was praising Yahweh, and we're seeing what they're saying. Does that not mimic what was happening with the thunder and the lightning, and how the people of Israel saw and heard Yahweh? It's the same thing. The renewed covenant. We, those who believe in the Mashiach, we have access to this moment where there is a new birth inside of us, a new birth of a mission, a new birth of our mind, a new birth of our soul, a new birth of our where we are physically. All of it is coming about if we've done the work along this pathway. If not, well, we might be 2 years in the desert, 3 years. I don't know. It might be another couple months. I'm happy to take just the written Torah. Don't get me wrong. Look, if I had a choice between the written Torah and no Torah, I'm gonna take the written Torah. So yes, I'm gonna, I'm not knocking the folks who aren't able to receive because they don't acknowledge it. This is why acknowledging things are important. Saying it. If you're not able to receive, if you're only limiting yourself, better way of saying it, if you're only limiting yourself to receiving the written Torah on Shavuot, well, ask and you shall receive. That's what you're going to get. Great. You've written Torah is great. We, as people who acknowledge and believe and know for certain that the name of Yahshua is Yahweh, with the powers of redemption and saving and healing in the year 5786, with the power to atone for our sins and make us new free people because we are not burdened by what we have done in the past. Then we receive the oral Torah anew, the living Torah anew, and the written Torah anew. I will end us on one last connection between Shemot and Numbers. And it's something that I caught right as I was finishing studying. And it was, I've never even thought about this. But as I was reading in Shemot, as it was talking about letting my people, Moshe and Aaron demanding Pharaoh to let my people go to the desert. Right? I thought Yahweh only took me there for this one little connection about the desert. And Yahweh said, do you see anywhere where you actually hear what this festival is? Read that again. And it was we know of this, let my people go. I mean, we talk about it, it's ingrained. And I said, I have never even, just the mere thought of that. I said, praise Yahweh, thank you for placing that on my spirit. Yeah, let me investigate that a little bit. What is this festival? It doesn't say what the festival is. And what we know about Yahweh's appointed times is they are all spelled out, and we can see them plain as day. We know what they are. We know when they are. We know what to do during them. But in this moment of let my people go, it says in chapter 5, verse 2, send my people forth so that they may hold a festival for me in the wilderness. What is this festival? What is this festival? Well, I will touch on it briefly, and I will say this festival is Shavuot, beloved. How do we know? Well, because somewhere following or before, I'm not looking at the exact verse, it says that it's a 3-day journey. This is what it says. Let my people go. It'll be a 3-day journey, but to a festival. Doesn't name the festival. So the only the only hint that we see about revealing the mystery of what this is this concept of a 3-day journey. It says here it is, Shemot 19, it's Shemot 19 verse, chapter 19, verse 10 through 11. It says, go to the people. Yahweh tells Moshe, go to the people and set apart for them today and tomorrow. Excuse me, hold on. Nope, that's not it actually. One second. Here it is. I'm sorry. It's at Shemot 5:3. Shemot 5:3, it says, let us go a 3 days journey into the wilderness and sacrifice to Yahweh, our Almighty One. Okay. Yes, I guess the next one right after that. Then, and that's in one version, another version. Then Yahweh of the Hebrews revealed himself to us. They said, let us take a 3-day journey into the wilderness and sacrifice to Yahweh, our Almighty One. That's the only hint we know. Yahweh said, the thing that you're approaching right now is exactly where you see that similar language about a 3-day journey and 3 days of preparation, and it's before Shavuot. It tells you that this is Shavuot. We see that in Exodus or Shemot 19, 10 through 11. Yahweh tells Moshe, go to the people and set apart them, it says sanctify them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their garments, and let them be ready for the 3rd day. For the 3rd day of Yahweh, for on the 3rd day, Yahweh will descend upon Mount Sinai in sight of all the people. It says it in Shemot or Exodus 19:15. Moshe transmits this to the people. He says, and he said to the people, be ready for the 3rd day. Do not draw near a woman. So the phrase be ready for a 3rd day is the structural anchor of the Sinai countdown, the Shavuot Mount Sinai revelation countdown. You want to see where else we see it? Where I just read about Yahshua. It talks about it there, again, coded. It says Miriam, mother of Yahshua, it says she spent 3 months at her friend's house, something with an E. I can't remember it right now. And then after those 3 months, she comes back, and then we see this moment where Yahshua was born. Logic is the same. 3 months is 3 days. 3 days is 3 months, meaning in Yahweh's ordering of things, 1,000 is a day. So it says this concept of anchoring things in the 3rd day, 2 days to set it apart and prepare. Yahweh is saying Shavuot is so important. Not only are you still counting the Omer, not only are you still counting the Omer and thus continuing to look in like, be in the image and likeness, but he then says, and on top of the counting of the Omer, where I know you still will have things to do, he said he's talking about preparation starting 3 days out that prepares your heart even more for this Yasam significant day of Shavuot. 2 days of setting it apart where you abstain from certain things. And then the third, then on the revelation is occurring on the third day. Beloved, I hope we are all, I hope what Yahweh has put down here that you all are picking up. Uh, and um, and I'm praying to Father Yahweh that as we continue our journey to Mount Sinai revelation, uh, I always get it mixed up and say Mount Sinai revolution. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, it actually is a revolution. It's a revelation that brings about a revolution in yourself, in your community, in your day to day, if taken seriously, if done with intention. If you've not been counting the Omer, you have no idea what I'm talking about. You can start today. The beauty of Yahweh's Omer journey is he is saying, if you've not taken it serious, if you haven't been counting, if you don't even know what it is, you can pick up right now, today, and start. Don't say the blessing for the first half of it, but say the prayer next day. You're fully reintegrated. It's as if you've been counting all along, is how Yahweh sees it spiritually. So I pray that you are picking it up. I pray that you are taking the journey seriously. I pray that you are not waiting for the podcast to come on to say your prayer, as in, I've not yet gotten to the point where I've got a precise time down. And the way that I've been looking at it, it is not an excuse. I will get better. I'll become more consistent at some point. I'm working on it. Uh, and, you know, we don't know, we don't know the time in which things will happen in terms of the Mashiach returning, for example. And so, if there's anything that maybe you're getting as a benefit from the annoyance of not having the uh, the consistency of the prayer, the podcast out at a certain time, at least you're growing in your ability to know that Yahshua is gonna surprise us all when he returns again, and we don't know the time, but we just know it's near, and we know it's gonna happen, and that's why we've got to stay prayed up. We've got to make sure we've done our teshuvah, because we have to be what? Prepared. And that is what this journey is all about: preparing, preparing, preparing. So I hope you maybe see it this way. It's a colorful way of looking at it. But in all seriousness, I pray that you all are at the point where you're doing the prayer early on. If you don't want to be, you know, surprised at when it comes out, and that you're not letting the podcast stop you from the blessing of doing the Omer. That is the main point, because what I now have to do is take a break and do the podcast, because I've been on with all of you for 3 hours. So I say Shavua Tov, have a blessed and prosperous week, and it was great spending time with you on the Shabbat.